What comes in mind for you when Ratchet & Clank spin-offs are mentioned? Perhaps you were thinking about the PSP releases, or even the modern Ranger Rumble game that was recently released. I'm not going to talk about either of those today, unfortunately. Today, I'm going to talk about the absolute best spin-off game Insomniac has ever made, Ratchet Deadlocked, or Ratchet Gladiator as it is known in other countries. After completing this game twice on 2 different difficulties, I definitely have some thoughts to share. I also will mention that I will be leaving out most of the Horizon features like survival out here, because while the team who made these modes are insanely talented, I just want to talk about my experience with the regular release. I also do want to mention anything I say is my silly personal opinion. If you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I think all the Ratchet & Clank games are fantastic in their own way. I just have different game preferences. Deadlock also introduced a difficulty setting. I actually did 2 playthroughs here. One playthrough I played on Hero, the second hardest difficulty. The second playthrough I played on Exterminator, the hardest difficulty on offer. But unfortunately, you have to complete the game first before you can choose this difficulty. Ratchet Deadlock opens with an event that happened the previous week where a hero named Captain Starshield, clearly trying to escape and stay alive, was unalived by a Temu Marvel character named Ace Hardlight. A news anchor, we learn later is named Dallas, reveals that he was on a show called DreadZone, and it is implied here that this is some sort of game show. The setting quickly switches to the present day, where Ratchet, Clank, and Al were all seen sitting at the captain's headquarters in Starship Phoenix, which, if you remember, this is the main hub area in Up Your Arsenal. Ratchet quickly gets a call from Sasha once again, who Ratchet reveals is the new mayor of Metropolis. She informs Ratchet about Captain Starfield's fate, mentioning how he had went missing about a month ago, and that he was involved with an illegal combat sport called DreadZone. Sasha gives him all the information she knows, saying DreadZone was operated in a lawless area in space by a man named Vox, not confused with Fox. Sasha's call then gets swiftly interrupted by 2 giant bots, who then capture Ratchet, Clank, and Al. This scene quickly switches again to Ratchet's perspective from inside of a helmet, and Al explaining he was unconscious for hours. I feel like in a way this is referencing to Star Wars, but I don't know if I'm willing to argue about that. Anyway, Al continues to adjust the armor for Ratchet and quickly gets yelled at for it. Ratchet then teleports to the training course, and that's when it's very noticeable that this is not a typical Ratchet & Clank game. Instead of a help desk, Clank actually gives you the tutorial, and you aren't on a specific planet this time. As much as I love Clank, him being a help desk quickly annoyed me. I think I'd rather just have the help desk lady, but that's just me. After completing the initial training course, Ratchet gets teleported to defeat actual enemies. This is still a part of the training course, so the enemies here weren't difficult at all to defeat. After all this, Vox introduces himself to Ratchet and explains to him that he is on a show called DreadZone, a deadly combat sport broadcasted live on television. Of course, Ratchet does not get a choice if he wants to participate or not, with Vox explaining that he has a deadlock collar around his neck and can painfully shock the contestant on command, or total detonation. Nothing to lose your head over, right? Ratchet then gets transported to the DreadZone station, which serves as the main hub area in the game, just like in the previous title, Up Your Arsenal, except that was the Starship Phoenix. Ratchet, of course, is excited to be a professional gladiator, but Clank, just as a disappointed father, reminds Ratchet that they are held prisoner in an illegal combat sport. Al is also being held prisoner with Ratchet and Clank, serving more of the tech guy, considering he was the one that set up Ratchet's armor. Al quickly introduces 2 BattleBots to Ratchet, Merc and Green, and explains that they will be assisting him during his journey on DreadZone. Merc and Green are one of the best features of this game. Not only are they hilarious, but they offer a unique experience that just mesh nicely with this game's playstyle. They actually are responsive with helping. Just imagine a Mr. Zircon following you around 24/7, plus having the ability to turn bolts. It's a shame that Insomniac did not bring back these characters because Merc and Green were the sole reason I love this game so much. After meeting Merc and Green, Ratchet makes his way back over to Clank, who is seen working in something called the Mission Control Room, explaining that every contestant has one that monitors the contestant's progress. Vox quickly calls and orders Ratchet to make his way to the Battle Dome, which the real action of the game starts. In the hub area, there are actually 2 different ships to take, unlike in previous titles where Ratchet only had 1 ship. These are transport ships, so they are tailored only to travel to planets DreadZone authorizes. One thing this game did do that was interesting was when you were traveling to another planet, instead of an infobot or something, the player can actually view advertisements as if they were really watching DreadZone on TV. These commercials were hilarious and absolutely enjoyable to watch, and I do get a bit sad that Insomniac never tried this again, unless you count the weapons ads from A Crack of Time. The 2 news anchors get introduced as well, Dallas and Juanita, who also play a major role in this game. I'm gonna be honest, with this game being over 20 years old, it is hard for me to accept that they managed to nail the media behavior this accurately. Like, this was a bit too accurate. Anyway, the Battle Dome is very straightforward. Unlike previous titles, the game doesn't really have missions and doesn't really encourage exploring around. If you remember the Ranger missions from Up Your Arsenal, imagine that, but taking a big step further. I know I mentioned I disliked the Ranger missions from that game, but despite that, I actually love this playstyle in this game. It creates a pick up and play feel. It's not overly complicated and it really digs into the desire of blowing up enemies in a ridiculous fashion. The game breaks down each objective as a tiny mission. The player must complete a series of missions in order to advance to the next stage. You do not necessarily have to complete every single mission on screen, but do keep in mind that each mission gives you points and you do need a certain amount of points to progress at each tournament. For my playstyle, this personally works. I love the simplistic breakdown of these missions and it just creates an overall fun game to play. It's not overcomplicated, it's very clear what your objectives are, and they are all replayable later. After the Battle Dome battle, the second ship becomes available to visit other planets. Clank does mention that tampering with the ship's course will cause the ship to explode, but this is more just a statement for the story. You can always return to previous planets later, especially if you want to try to get those skill points or if you missed the challenge. The first planet we visit is Catacrom 4, which is actually supposed to be an old robot burial ground. I don't mind Catacrom 4, but it does look similar to Sarathos, a planet that is visited later in the game. Each planet does have different objectives, but the way to achieve these objectives stay the same. I am suggesting the gameplay is a bit identical throughout all the levels, but with Deadlocked, it really does work. I will say the vehicles felt odd to control. We got a vehicle similar to Up Your Arsenal's little Puma, which controls very similarly, but yeah, the vehicles were definitely the weakest point of this game, but this specific vehicle wasn't the reason. It was fine. Now, the Landstalker. I'm sorry, but we need to talk about this. It is tediously slow, not to mention it feels so weak to use. I found it extremely difficult to steer around. The only thing that this thing does kinda well is jumping, and that's me being extremely nice. After completing the core missions, each planet also has dread challenges, which are also needed for DreadZone points. You don't have to do every single one. In fact, I think you can safely skip 3 in the entire game, but some of these challenges are very tedious. On Catacrom 4, there is a classic hoverbike race, an incredibly annoying challenge with the worst vehicle in the franchise, timed by the way, and a mission to destroy towers with the bolt crank. After defeating all the necessary challenges, Sarathos is finally unlocked. I do want to briefly mention how weapon modding works in this game. Insomniac, why has this method never returned? And the process of modding weapons was perfect in my opinion. It's not confusing at all, straightforward, and the mods feel insanely effective, especially the shock mod. I definitely feel like this game had the best modding situation in Ratchet Clank history. Sarathos. Ugh. I feel like it is a bit too similar to Catacrom 4, but the colors at least were way darker. I can say I think Insomniac did a better job making this map more look swamp-like compared to previous titles. We are introduced to an enemy called the Leviathan as well, which annoy the piss out of me. All I can say about these guys is just make sure you have a hollow shield ready. It really helps. Just like in previous missions, here is no different. You need to stay alive getting to the other side of the map. You can actually use a hacker here, which you win in Catacrom 4, but thankfully you don't have to use it. Your bots do. Merc and Green seriously are so helpful and really take the annoying tasks out of the game entirely. It just feels even better as the game progresses. Sarathos does feature a little boss battle with a giant Leviathan, but it wasn't exactly a health bar, so I'm not really sure if I would call it a boss. You can also drive the Puma around here too, which, whatever I guess. But it also includes another time segment with the Landstalker. This time, Ratchet's expected to defeat a certain amount of Leviathans before the time is up, which is a lot easier said than done. This vehicle is awful and makes these challenges so painful to play through. After all this though, the Kronos is finally unlocked. During the flight, we do get a Vox Sports update introducing the exterminator named Shellshock. In case you didn't know what exterminators were, they are the fighters in DreadZone. Shellshock is by far my favorite, reminding me a bit of the Terminator. Dallas and Juanita also make up false story of Ratchet and Clank getting beaten up by Courtney Gears, claiming they were psychotic fans. Wow, this game really nailed it with the fake news, did they? Landing on Kronos, Ratchet discovers Shellshock and his team actually took over the planet. Kronos is actually a nice planet, but for some reason it reminds me of Blackwater City. The main objective here is to regain the city, which is very straightforward. All of these objectives are very straightforward. Ratchet does have to fight Shellshock on this planet though, but he is not difficult at all. I do feel bad because I actually like this character, but he is supposed to be evil. Defeating him wasn't very hard though. Kronos also features grind rails, which were left out in the previous game, and a hover shift challenge. If you remember how the hover shift challenge operated in Up Your Arsenal, it's the same here. Thankfully, the Landstalker does not make an appearance here. After Kronos, the Adventure Tournament is unlocked, the next tournament needed to progress in the game. You can only participate in these tournaments in the Battle Dome, which are really stay alive with some twists. Some challenges recycle weapons, others require intensive platforming, and some were just simply surviving. Thankfully, Shellshock was defeated on the last planet, so we don't need to worry about him here. After the tournament, traveling back to the hub area shows another cutscene where Dallas and Juanita continue to spread lies about Ratchet. Al for some reason believes this, but Ratchet and Clank don't seem too bothered by it, just very annoyed. The lies are ridiculous though, claiming Ratchet sold cigarettes to children, which obviously wasn't true. Ratchet brushes all this off and demands to know what to do next. Clank explains that he was in contact with a tech droid that may be able to help free everyone out of the DreadZone collars, but he wasn't so sure yet. Ratchet has now returned back to the planet ship and travels to a planet called Char, a very unpopular planet in the Ratchet and Clank community. I can definitely see why. It has a square layout, which in my opinion is just an odd choice for this game. It's not real easy to get away from enemies compared to the planet with a straight path, but it does at least look nice. Char is packed with bolt crank missions and driving the Landstalker, which annoyed me some more. I hate that stupid Landstalker, but thankfully the campaign missions, nothing was timed. Now in the challenges, it does include a very cursed Landstalker mission that I hate doing. The objective here is to hit all the targets before you can get to the end of the map. You do not control the Landstalker at all. You are expected to aim and quickly fire at all the targets as quickly as possible. The Landstalker is already difficult to aim with, but this mission alone made me hate the Landstalker even more. I am so glad in challenge mode none of these missions need to be completed because doing these missions once was enough punishment for me. All the other challenges on this planet were fine though, just this one was horrible. After Char, Orxon is unlocked. And yes, this is the same Orxon that was seen in Ratchet Clank 1. An adorable cutscene is played while traveling between these planets. It's just some kids thinking their pajamas give them superpowers. I don't know about you guys, but I thought these kids were just too adorable. They remind me of the kids in my family a lot. I guarantee you as well, if I was 7 years old again, I probably would try to fly in my pajamas too, thinking I had superpowers. After the ad though, Vox reminded Ace Hardlight merchandise is still not selling, and learns that Ratchet merchandise is actually selling better. He orders a test to figure out why these items aren't selling, but I'm pretty sure I can guess why. Landing on Orxon, they did reuse the color palette a bit from the first 2 planets, but I don't know. I tend to have a higher tolerance with that since these planets aren't really meant to be explored like in previous titles, but it is obvious Insomniac recycle ideas here. The objective here is to destroy the entire facility. The planet is heavy on the hack array, but it's not a big deal since your bots are only supposed to be doing that. However, you do get cornered easily. Just make sure to check all angles and don't get backed into a corner. Of course, the challenges there is another atrocious Landstalker challenge, of course timed. You have to destroy a certain amount of enemies before you can reach the end of the map, and just like previously, you cannot control the Landstalker. If you get damaged here, there is no way to backtrack and you can't go to the vehicle pad for help. After Orxon, the Crusader tournament is unlocked. The tournament contains more challenges similar to the previous tournament, but they get a lot harder here. Ratchet does have to defeat Reactor in this tournament though, which I will say definitely put up a good fight for me. He wasn't insanely difficult, but I enjoyed this battle regardless of that. He isn't too easy, and he was just fun enough where I wasn't rage quitting. If I had to pick a favorite boss battle for this game, it would be Reactor. Defeating the Crusader tournament unlocks the Valix belt next, which was something different. This planet really relies on navigating around with those grind rails, which I certainly didn't mind at all. I had a lot of fun grinding down these rails, and it was also fun to shoot enemies down with the dual Vipers. I do wish the developers allowed me to pick a different weapon on the grind rail, but it wasn't a big deal. There is also a hovership mission here too, which isn't any different from the last time. Most of the objectives here are getting to point A to point B, and of course the main objective is turning on the actual lighthouse. There are only 2 dread challenges here, one being a hovership race, but I honestly didn't feel like this planet needed more than that. After the lighthouse, another cutscene is played showing Vox testing how the children feel about his products. The children of course pick everything except Ace Hardlight merchandise, irritating Vox. One child does mention he actually wants merchandise of Ratchet instead, which does end up infuriating Vox. After this cutscene, Ratchet travels off to planet Torval, the planet that solely produces 8 Hardlight action figures. The factory of course is shut down, but the main objective is to find a ship that is hiding and escape it. Torval is actually pretty cool. On the outside it is a reddish-brown desert planet, but on the inside it looks just so cool. I genuinely had a lot of fun playing on this planet since it actually did feel like a factory that was shut down. These objectives really weren't difficult compared to the previous planets, but they were still fun to play. And I had a lot of fun racing on the hover bikes for challenges. After Torval, Ratchet progresses to the Vindicator tournament, which in my opinion is my favorite. Of course, way back down to the hub area, we are greeted with Dallas and Juanita continuously making up lies about Ratchet. Dallas does mention Ratchet has to battle the Eviscerator, who is another exterminator from DreadZone. Of course, like in previous tournaments, before Ratchet can even fight the Eviscerator, some various challenges must be completed in the Battle Dome. None of these challenges are exactly notable here, but I can say I genuinely enjoyed the Eviscerator battle. He definitely threw some challenges at me, being that he is so dang fast. He wasn't necessarily the strongest boss, but him being so fast definitely forced me to start speeding up my process. After defeating the Eviscerator, Clank lets Ratchet know as soon as he returns that he found a way to disconnect the DreadZone collars. He of course breaks all of them off when Ace storms in, interrupting Clank. Ace callously fires his weapon at Al, who gets knocked cold. Ratchet threatens Ace, while Ace orders them to put back their collars, and then Al is quickly rushed to the hospital. After this, Stygia is unlocked. On their way there, DreadZone once again plays a screen, and Vox explains Stygia is under an endless meteor shower. The planet is protected by a shield, which Vox admits he totally does not know who would do such a thing and disable them. This is where Vox to me starts entering the insane territory. This has to be one of the most evil bosses in Ratchet Clank history, solely for the fact that he would rather end thousands of lives for a quick dollar. Stygia is another dark and rainy planet, but has a similar layout to the Valix Lighthouse. Like I had mentioned, because of this game's playstyle type, it really doesn't bother me that Insomniac recycled level layouts. Yeah, I wish they would do something new, but considering that exploration isn't a big part of the game, it really is not a big deal. There is more Landstalker's missions here, sadly. I swear, if the Landstalker was cut content, I seriously wouldn't have minded. For some reason, there aren't any challenges on this planet, though. Next planet is the Maraxus prison, where, as soon as Ratchet lands, both Merc and Green get captured. Honestly, it really wasn't that hard without the bots like I feared. You do save Merc first, and in the following challenge, rescue Green. I felt really bad for poor Green having to sit around and wait, but at least he was saved. The overall missions of this planet were pretty straightforward, and despite not having the battle bots for majority of the planet, it still really wasn't all bad. In the challenges though, another horrible Landstalker time segment appears. Honestly, I didn't even try to beat it. If we were doing a 100% though, I would be crying completing these like I did when I first played this game. After completing Maraxus and flying back to the hub, another broadcast from Dallas and Juanita starts. They both seem pretty surprised that Ratchet managed to defeat all the exterminators so far, but despite that, they continue to talk trash. Ace Hardlight soon chimes in as well, and he insists that he will destroy Ratchet. I really don't like Ace Hardlight. Like the child had said earlier in the game, Ace Hardlight is a tool. Ace Hardlight in the Liberator tournament was actually pretty funny. He would be ridiculously easy to defeat if he didn't use health packs, which is pretty pathetic for a boss. I firmly believe only the players should be allowed to refill health, and I actually think the developers agree here. Ace Hardlight really doesn't have much to stand on if it weren't for those health packs. When Ace finally gets defeated, he begs Ratchet not to let Vox do what he did to him. I don't really know if Ace was being sincere here or not, but considering that he was taking his final breaths, I would assume he is being sincere. Ace Hardlight deserves a deep dive, honestly. After completing the Liberator tournament, the final and best level finally becomes unlocked, the Ghost Station. Everything about this planet was just awesome. The music was so awesome to listen to, the aesthetics of the planet overall fit the game extremely well, the navigation was not difficult at all, and all the missions are super fun. I could go on. I really wish this planet had way more to do on offer, but I completely understand why it didn't since this is the final level. After Ghost Station, Clank informs Ratchet that he found a way to lower the containment fields to free all the heroes trapped in DreadZone. Surprisingly, Al mentioned that he helped a lot here as well, despite Ratchet thinking he was gone. He now has a robotic arm and a metal headpiece and seems to be proud of his new body. I am so glad that Al survived here, and it makes me smile to see how strong he is still going despite what had happened. Clank then tells Ratchet to go to the Battle Dome to pull up a computer on the control label so the fields can come down. This is a one-way ride, but Ratchet goes anyway. When Ratchet lands on the Battle Dome, Vox surprisingly calls him and announces that he intends to blow up the Battle Dome into pieces if Ratchet doesn't disarm the Battle Dome fast enough. Ratchet asks Vox if he's really going to do this since thousands of his fans are involved as well, but Vox says he isn't going to kill them. Ratchet is. Seems fair. Dallas and Juanita both have DreadZone colors like Ratchet and are visibly terrified after learning what Vox is currently doing. I will be honest, I am not entirely sure what Insomniac was going for with this final stage because the sense of urgency just wasn't there for me. The timer resets if you start a new mission, and it seems like there actually may be too much time to complete these missions. I don't necessarily want something impossible, I just wanted to feel a bit more of a sense of urgency here. After completing all the missions and getting into the Battle Dome, Ratchet finally has to defeat Vox. Oh, Vox. Oh my gosh. If he isn't the hardest Ratchet & Clank boss in existence, I would definitely say he is at least in the top 3. You better have your weapons upgraded, because if you don't, Vox puts up a very good fight, especially in Exterminator mode. He wasn't frustratingly difficult though. Defeating him finally felt like a huge reward, especially considering how truly evil this person was. When Vox is finally defeated, Clank and Al both pick up Ratchet and watch the Battle Dome explode with Vox in it. Thankfully, all the fans were saved, and Dallas and Juanita, who miraculously loves Ratchet during the final moments of DreadZone. Overall, Ratchet Deadlocked is my favorite Ratchet & Clank game, even though it is a spin-off. I am a huge fan of the darker themes in this game and the straight-to-the-action playstyle. Sometimes exploring gets annoying for me, so this game really satisfies my trigger itch when it comes to Ratchet & Clank. This game definitely is not for everyone though, especially since all the missions and challenges kind of seem like they are the same after a while. It is very difficult for me to explain how these work, since this is just something I feel like you need to experience yourself, but despite that, Ratchet Deadlocked is a very solid entry into the series. If you have not tried Ratchet Deadlocked out, you absolutely have to. It's just a good time, and you will not be disappointed.